Hi, Nigel here with the Drivewire, and this is the brand new Audi A3, and things have changed quite a bit since the last model. It's undergone a full redesign and it has a new powertrain. Now, it's still a very pretty looking car. It's more stylish, it's more elegant than before, and best of all, it isn't an SUV or a crossover. It's a sedan, which we like. Now today I'm going to test this car. We're going to see how it compares with its German rivals, being BMW and Mercedes, and we'll see how it compares to them at the end of the test. So what exactly is this car up against? Well, the excellent BMW 228i xDrive, and from Mercedes, the 220 for Matic. Now this one is a Quattro version. You can get it in front-wheel drive, but this is a Quattro one, which is why I'm going to compare them with those two other cars. So all three of these cars have a 2-liter turbo 4. The Audi wins in the price bracket. Starts at $35,900, and this one fully equipped. It's a Premium Plus model, $42,490. Comes in cheaper than both the BMW and the Mercedes. The Audi has a little bit less power. The BMW wins on that, 258 foot-pounds. The Mercedes and the Audi come with a 7-speed twin clutch. The BMW gets an 8-speed manual, and obviously, due to the additional power, it comes in as the fastest with 0 to 60 in 6 seconds, and also has the most interior space because it's the Grand Coupe model. However, the Audi has the best economy, so you got to choose from this and see which one. But obviously, on paper, things are a lot different to actually driving, which we'll do later. So what's changed on this model? Well, it's 1.4 inches longer. It's about 0.8 of an inch wider, and it's about half an inch taller, and it now rides on the MQB Evo platform, which is essentially the same as the Mark 8 GTI. So this Premium Plus model adds the lane keep assist system. It's got adaptive cruise, it's got a rear cross traffic alert, it's also got blind spot monitors. On this Premium Plus, it has the optional 18-inch rims. They look pretty good. It also has these 225/40s all around. They are Pirelli all seasons. It's great because any tire other than a Bridgestone is good for me. So in the conventional style trunk, you get almost 11 cubic feet of space. It's quite well beaten by the BMW. The Mercedes matches this one for the same amount of space, and then underneath you get a small space saver rear tire and a little grocery net to keep those groceries from flying around the trunk. It's a decent size. There just isn't a lot of depth between these two, but that's the price you pay for having a pretty car. So under the hood, as I mentioned before in my side-by-side comparison, you get a little bit less power than the previous model. So if you remember, last year's all-wheel drive A3 had 228 horsepower and 258 foot-pounds of torque, and then the front-wheel drive one had less. Well, now, regardless of which wheels are driven, the engine has 201 horsepower and 221 pound-feet of torque. The good news is it's augmented by a 48-volt mild hybrid system, so it does offer much better fuel economy, which is why it won the comparison. Also benefits the overall driving experience, and we'll find out about that later. But yeah, there's almost no lag in this engine. I really like it. In the back, it is not too bad. I don't have very long legs. A couple of people asked me in the comments. I'm only like 5'7", so it fits me fine. If you're 6 feet or taller, you're not gonna like spending time in the back because the roof slopes down again to keep that pretty shape going, and I've barely got enough room, but I'm comfortable enough for a journey. I've got my own vents. I got a little power, 2 fast USBs, and it's generally pretty comfortable, but you know, you're not really gonna spend a lot of time in the back, are you? Alright, so here we are in the front, and it is not too bad. You get leather seats as standard in the Premium Plus. You do not in the Mercedes. You have to pay extra, and you also have to pay extra in the BMW. Otherwise, you get vegan leather. These are decently comfortable. They're not as good as the S-Line ones that I've seen before. I like the fact you get memory seats are included, and on this one, No cooled seats, only heated seats, and that's a separate package in the Mercedes and the BMW as well. So they do kind of nickel and dime you for all those different options. It would be nice if this did have the option of cooled seats, but you have to go up one to a Prestige to get those. Pretty decent quality, but for $35,000, it's not going to be like an S8, and so a little bit of scratchy plastics here and there, but generally it's well put together. These are soft feel plastics here. Get the excellent interface. As I said, there's no physical volume button anymore. You have to use this weird sort of like little touchpad right here, but it works fine. Engine start stop. The charger holds pretty decent sized phones. It won't charge my phone through the case, unfortunately, but you can't have everything. You got a drive select system here. I'm an individual and I've programmed it for sporty drive and balanced in the steering, and it seems to work great. It's not too hard, the suspension's not like crashy, it works perfectly for me. Everything else is super easy to use, it's fast. You've got phone apps, you've got Apple CarPlay, you've got all this stuff to play with. You've got navigation, apart from this one wasn't purchased on this particular test car, but you'd show a map there anyway. But you might as well use Android Auto or CarPlay anyway for that. And down here in the center console, you do get this weird switch-like thing. You've seen that on the Golf GTI, parking brake, 12-volt little change thing here. And there's a couple of cup holders that are okay. I have my one in the door pocket right now. Doesn't wobble around too much, so that works as well. So what do I not like? Well, you know, I don't like sunroofs. I just really don't like sunroofs, but every single Audi comes out of the factory with a sunroof, which is okay, but I wish they didn't put this hairnet style, very thin thing. A lot of heat comes through that, particularly obviously here in Southern California where it's hot for most of the time of the year. Sun just comes straight through this. I don't know why they can't put something a little bit more of substance there. So because this is a Premium Plus model, not a Prestige, you don't automatically get the cool driver display. So where you press view, normally that would move those two dials on the right and left to make them smaller. You can obviously lay the maps over there. You can play around with this to some degree. You can scroll through. There's a little scrolly wheel so you can see what your fuel consumption is. I've been hammering it, so 19, but I'll get better as I go along. 21.5 as a long-term energy consumption, driver assistance controls, etc. I just leave the date and time in there. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, easy to use. And then yes, I know there's no physical volume control. There's that weird pad thing that I showed you, but you can change the volume here on the wheel, so it makes it a lot easier to control. Another thing I'm not really keen on is I have the camera on right now, and it's sort of like a little bit of a fisheye lens, and the quality is kind of poor in terms of it's not really very HD, so I'm not too pleased with that. So forget about the numbers. Let's see how this car actually drives. So I have it in my preset individual mode. I'm gonna put it into S. Flick at this lever here. I like the fact that the parking brake automatically comes off. And let's go. So it's got modest acceleration. I like the fact that there's no lag, or very little lag, especially in sport mode. And the fact that it doesn't ride too hard on this really bad pavement, even though we have it in individual mode. I haven't tried it in comfort mode, but this is a mode that I could live with. So once on the move though, this is kind of nice. It's got some point and squirt. It carves around these turns well. I already like these Pirellis, so I know the S3 we tested a few weeks ago had Bridgestones on, and we had those squealing on the limit. These are doing a pretty good job so far. So the good news is you can hustle this, even though it's the base model. It goes pretty well. I mean, 0 to 60 takes around 6.4 seconds. That is not super fast. The GTI is going to be quicker than this. It's got more power, obviously. Do I miss the additional 27 horsepower that last year's model had? Kind of, but it wouldn't matter too much to me. I have the steering set in a fairly not too aggressive mode, the middle mode, and it feels good. It feels planted. The suspension is absorbing these bumps well, and I kind of like it. A softer suspension works better along here because it is super bumpy. This car tracks well. Like most German cars track really well at higher speeds, and it's holding fairly high speeds right now without too much of a problem. If there is a downside, it's the brakes. I did notice that the rotors were slightly discolored. This car has been driven hard in its 6,800 miles, obviously, and I feel like you have to push quite hard to get the bite that you need out of the brakes, which is never good. Now, coming off an RCF Fuji with Brembos and, you know, unbelievable stopping power, it took a couple of days to get used to this, but now I am. And yes, I am finding now that I need a little bit more of a push on the brakes, but it's fine. They're fairly linear, they don't feel weird, but that would be the only downside. Now, if you were to chip this car, which you can do, obviously there are warranty issues, but you can chip. I've chipped Audis before that I've owned. I would seriously consider getting better brakes on this, because I think you could probably chip this with quite a considerable amount of additional horsepower and torque, and I feel these standard brakes may not be up to the task, but they're absolutely fine for this 201 horsepower. I mean, the engine's a little buzzy at speed, but it isn't bad. I mean, it's nothing, you know, that most of these 2.0 turbos are a little buzzy at speed. It sounds like a VW Audi engine because it is a VW Audi engine. Now, in these tight twisties, there's a little body roll. There's no adaptive suspension here, really, and it just a couple of steering corrections, and it handles pretty well. And I am very happy with these Pirellis. All season or not, these aren't bad. But you can definitely have some fun with it. And then, you know, even though I've been hammering this, EPA says you'll get 36 highway. I believe it's 28 in town. It's super easy to drive. It's super smooth. It just doesn't quite have the same urge that a BMW had. It did when it had 228 horsepower, but it has a little bit less now. But yeah, you see that transmission, it shifts down, it does pretty snappy changes. It's a 7-speed dual clutch, of course. So it doesn't really need to wait. Yeah, I'll be honest, if I didn't need the space of an SUV crossover, Q3 for example, comes to mind, this is way more fun than a Q3. Way more fun. But then again, I'm biased. I love sedans and I'm not a huge fan of crossovers. Of course, you know, Audi is hoping to attract younger buyers. The price is at a good price point. I think the average price of a car now in the US is about 42 anyway, so it falls right in that sweet spot. Gets them hooked on the 4 rings, and then they come back with a family and they buy a big old SUV, unfortunately. Or they don't get married and they buy an S8. Yeah, I do like the way this thing tracks. For the non-sporty version 3, it's not too bad. Yeah, I feel like this would be a nice little road trip car for 2 people. You got plenty of room. for stuff to throw in the trunk, in the back. It's going to be economical. Oh, and the best thing is it only requires regular gas. I checked that because I had to fill it up, and it says regular gas, which often these four-cylinder turbos require premium. So what do we think? Well, for a first-time luxury car buyer, I think this is a great little entry-level option, as are the other cars. We're testing this Audi today, though. If you want more performance, then go get yourself an S3. If you want to stay around this price, then you'd probably have to go for the BMW, but it's not as pretty as this car. All around, this is an excellent little car. It hasn't really lost much in the transition to a slightly lower powered engine. True, it's not as quick from 0 to 60, but the driving experience, as we found out, is actually pretty good. Anyway, once again, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Like and subscribe, and we will catch you next time with another video. Out.